Welcome, listeners, to this season one finale. So, Sid, it was a great experience for us to go through this season one and listening to the different perspectives.
Yeah. So in this episode, what we're going to do, Sujay, is let's rewind. Let's look at some of the key themes, some of the great insights we've had from the last few episodes, almost like a masterclass of sort. And the great perspectives our guests have given on why data must become the enterprise's fourth pillar.
Yes, Sid, and that was the whole objective of us initially kicking off this podcast is to introduce this fundamental problem enterprises faces with the traditional operating model of relying only on people, process, and technology. However, with the rapidly changing world due to AI inflections and what we see in the economic and geopolitical environment, the importance of data, and in the episode with Rajiv, he gave us a unique perspective from his side. So let's listen to the clip with Rajiv. So, what we want to elevate the importance at board and CEO that you need to take a holistic view of your people, process, technology, and data, and that's where the flywheel effect is. Each is going to impact the other more so going forward.
I would look at it as a four-legged table in which you got three of the legs which are there, and the fourth leg is not there. It'll be a wobbly table.
Yeah.
It won't be able to take on anything. You see, you'll have a real challenge on hand unless you get the fourth leg out over there.
That was a great perspective indeed from Rajiv, and he talked very well about the wobbly table and the three legs, and why it's really important to reimagine or reconnect your business towards that transponential impact, as he put it, which connects also very well to our first episode with Ganesh Natarajan, where he mentioned a very critical point about AI is not just putting lipstick on the bulldog. So let's listen to Ganesh's perspective on this.
When you talk about game-changing AI, there is a need to reimagine your business. It's no longer a put off, it's not like putting, in the old days we used to call it putting lipstick on the bulldog. The AI is not lipstick on the bulldog. So it is very much redefining whether it's a bulldog or something else.
Yeah, that was another unique perspective from Ganesh. He emphasized that this reimagining cannot be treated just as an IT problem. It requires massive business transformation across all aspects of the business. Hence, it requires reimagining your business. In that context, let's listen to what Rudiger and Thomas talked about this transformational effort.
It is actually helping you to transform your business, to connect parts and dots in the business that previously were not connected. And I think that element is difficult to convey because as I said before, there's no proven methodology, there's no proven tool that you say if you use that tool you will get that result. So you may well find out that there's nothing in the data that actually will solve your problem. You can speculate about it, but is it good enough? Is it timely enough? Has it got the right quality? Have you organized ownership? Is cost and benefit in a good proportion, in a good relation? That's what my role is mostly about, to enable the business to have like a common understanding, agreed understanding of what we're trying to do, and to continuously support us in that on that journey.
Yeah, this was again a great perspective, and this highlights the importance of the intervention needed by boards and corporate citizens to really ensure that they govern innovation and risk in a very systematic form. So with that, I'd also like to connect perspectives that we had from Carl Piva, where he talked about how boards should look at tackling AI. So let's listen to the clip.
But what strikes me to be the really exciting part are the companies who manage to take machine learning and AI capabilities and really fuel their entire business model based on that and based on feedback loops, etc. Turning, let's say, generic AI into something unique for them and their business. It seems to me that the starting point are usually some new outfits who have a really, really cool idea and they can make it happen overnight. But maybe the ones who are going to be most successful in the end are the ones who are able to do this, let's say, switch the engine exercise in bigger companies and turn their scale to an advantage.
Yes, interesting one from Carl. He talked about bringing that sharp focus, and that strategic focus is required to bring about this transformation and extract value from data. And towards that, in the episode with Minal, I really loved the unique perspective that came out in that discussion. So let's listen to what Minal said.
We are the Google Maps of future for our juniors. We tell them how to go from point A to point B on the most optimized way. I cannot take my team from point A to point B in the most optimized path if I have not measured those paths, if I have not found out, and I'm also real time not tracking where the traffic is going to be. So we also evolve with time. We are not stuck that this is the path, go ahead. We always evolve with time. So in short, I would say, think of data as your strategic advantage, and just like you invest in all your other strategic initiatives, this is a strategic initiative. And for the team, don't be defensive. People understand their value. I'm pretty sure all our members check their likes and everything. So this generation is much easier to work with.
Yeah, again, great perspectives from Rinal, very fresh in our mind because this was the latest episode. And he really highlighted about data being the introvert and us becoming the means to talk to the data and get the insights out of this. So great perspectives. So I think this was kind of one of the themes which we really learned from Sujay, right? About why data is really key to the operating model, as we spoke about. I think the second big theme we've talked about or understood from all the episodes is the current context where we are, living in this very volatile world and the importance of data and AI. So the first perspective is I want to look at is Binny's perspective, Binny Gill, and he highlighted the importance of a strong data foundation for AI and the risk that enterprises have if they don't have this strong foundation.
Data is memory of an organization, and without memory, intelligence is useless. So you have to first of all solve the data problem. Make sure that your memories are correct and they are not polluted with wrong things. Then you have to figure out how can you bring that data to decision-making engines. Last 25 years, we have talked about bringing data to humans so that they could make better decisions, and you have all sorts of insight, dashboarding tools and all of that. Now we are living in a world where you have to want to bring the same data to AI so that it can make decisions, right?
That was an interesting one from Binny. And data actually creates an existential risk if you're feeding in bad data or data without context. And towards that, Sid, in the episode, you talked about a very significant point about what might happen due to bad data or data that is not tuned to the operating rhythm of the organization. So let's listen to that clip.
In the data world, we've always heard this term, right? Garbage in, garbage out. Hearing more and more this term, garbage in, gospel out, which basically means garbage. The AI will gospel, but it's going to hallucinate and gospel it confidently. It's even more dangerous than garbage in, garbage out. Yeah, thanks, Sujay. I mean, that was indeed a very good discussion we had with this topic around garbage in and gospel out. And I really also loved Katerina's perspective in her episode, where she also talked about the only cure for such hallucination that we are seeing more and more with generative AI is the need for absolute context.
Now, suddenly, we're in an age where there are now programs that can take the information and on their own learn how to use them. This then becomes a whole different ballgame, because now you need to be 100% sure that the data that this program is picking up, where did it come from? Where did it pick this up? It's just like people, when people are sitting talking and someone says, oh, did you know that? And then they go to the third person and you have this whispering game. So AI can be just a huge whispering game if you're not careful.
Yes, that's critical, Sid, and we are now hearing a lot of context buzz in the market, right? But from our perspective, we have been highlighting so much earlier in the book. Context is critical if AI has to work with the people, work in business processes, and being enabled by technology. And more so with people, because we are carrying the context and the business processes need the context. So if an AI just providing the data without the accurate context will create such hallucinations or wrong outcomes and thus risk the existence of that organization. And leaning on to that, AI also enables companies to bring in that transformation impact leveraged and powered by data. So let's listen to what Shamik talked about, how organizations needs to be adaptive to deliver multiple times output.
So we actually bucketed all the AI stories into a 2x, a 5x, and a 10x bucket. 2x is all like you want to automate coding, the vibe coding and all that, you will give you maybe 100% efficiency gain. Then flex is when you start impacting the customer. Say that, hey, you have this data. I will give you insight functionality through which you can now query and get greater value. And 10x is it would not have been possible for us to expand maybe into a new industry or new use case completely. But using AI, can I do that in next 6 months' time?
Yeah, this was again amazing perspectives, and I really like the way he kind of broke down the big challenge into manageable chunks, with the way he called out the 2x, 5x, and the 10x business outcomes and impacts, and how the importance of data can be in all of these areas. Again, going back to the volatility theme, Sujay, I think the best, at least example I have, is the one I faced about when I was stuck in Doha, and we had a great episode discussing that. So let's look at some of the aspects from data and volatility.
I'm sure Qatar Airways did not have a dashboard which was showing that this hotel had a high stress index of passengers. So let's send more people there. But it's a good food for thought or insight for a CXO audience, I would say. How do you institutionalize this capture of context across your organization, all this qualitative information and knowledge that's float across, and then how do you then route it to decision makers so as to improve your business operations or customer experience throughout, right?
Absolutely, and it's in these times of crisis, where the right actions may create, lifelong customers, or may create customers who will never ever be connected or associated with the enterprise. So I think it's an even more important data point and an action point than during a status quo situation, because in a status quo situation you may not create that big spectrum of impact, positively or negatively.
Yes, Sid, I think your experience actually brought about the importance of data in highly volatile world, high VUCA world that we call VUCA standing for volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity. And it helps organization realizes the importance of data. And actually to bring that impact in a high VUCA world or leveraging data for AI, the challenge and the problem with data is that people think it's bits and bytes, so it's difficult to interact with data. Hence, we brought about the concept of personifying data. We as human beings, we are emotional people and we interact with other human beings and data. If we are able to personify it, it becomes easier for us to talk to data, like as Minal talked about. Hence, we introduce this signature question to all our guests that if you had to personify data, what would it be? And I think that was an interesting part of each conversation, and we received interesting responses from each of our guests. So let's listen to those responses on personification of data.
Well, I think persona should be the fairy godmother. If you remember your Cinderella story, when the fairy godmother gives her an opportunity to go to the ball, that's when she discovers, hopefully it's about the prince and everybody else. So I think we all need a fairy godmother, which is good data, which can then power us onto that insight. Otherwise, you're all depending on the contextual story that we are growing up with. But a world of imagination, a world of new insights, a world of opportunity, I think that's what your godmother should give you, and hopefully that is data.
There's a character in Star Trek called Spock, Mr. Spock,
Okay.
who's a Vulcan, right? He's not human,
Yeah.
he's Vulcan. And very logical. So he's a person who does not understand jokes. It does not get emotional, but can speak to all humans. There is Mr. Spock, who's actually the right-hand man of the human and makes the human make the right decisions, but doesn't make the decisions. The captain is emotional, takes risks, and Spock is there to help. I think the future of data is not just the numbers, but some intelligence on top that is extremely logical. So that's my character for you.
I thought about it for a second and I realized it would probably be my dad. He was a very wise man when he lived. He sort of knew everything, and what he didn't know, he could deduce from the knowledge that he had. So when you ask a question, I sort of immediately came to think about him, because he was, in a good day, he was a brilliant man.
For me, data as a person is, I was thinking of, I don't know whether you know Mary Kondo, the lady that declutters your home.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm thinking of data. Yeah, you can either live in a rather cluttered home where you personally know where to find your book that you read last year and you have it in 1 minute, or you can declutter your home and have a very clear knowledge, and can somebody else tell, he will understand your way of organizing and will find the book on its own. I think I was thinking of data. The Mary Kondo.
That's a nice one.
What popped in my mind is, I think, the wizard and the beast. So not the beauty and the beast, but the wizard and the beast, like Gandalf the Grey coming from the sky and falling onto this heavenly, earthly place. And I think it's because the wizard obviously can do magic, but it's also a bit weird. You don't really know how he's doing it. What do you need to do to activate it? If you get it wrong, he will really distract you, destroy you potentially. You don't quite understand how it works. And a beast also, I think, because once you get into the nitty-gritty, you understand that it's actually a bit more difficult than you were thinking out from the start.
I will say it is James Bond. And the reason I call it James Bond is because it is the context, right? He knows what the surrounding context is, which is data, I believe, there. And you are able to react to that using your skills in the right way. So he always needs some great tools, right? He needs to have that Aston Martin. He always needs to have this special revolver and special gadgets. Dr. Q will give it to them. But always, I think it is the smartness that lies in how do you leverage your data and your assets to get done, right?
So if you think of honeybees, they are actually incredibly smart in storing and sharing data. So honeybees use all sorts of tactics to move data along. They use scent, aromas, the pheromones. They have these wiggling dances. They can show each other through some dance. Okay, in which direction is this food source and how far is it? So it's really interesting to see how an entire huge group of animals in a beehive can tell each other about where data is, where it's stored, etc., by using their scent and the movements of their bodies.
I feel somewhere it is like a Sherlock Holmes, if you know. He's constantly looking for those clues, those little clues that you can find and that you will find in data. You may see the big picture, but you'll not be able to make a lot out of it. Sometimes just that one tiny element of a clue which you will find embedded somewhere can be useful. Sherlock Holmes has the ability to kind of find that from that data, from the little clues that he picks up. And data is one such thing that I would personify as Sherlock Holmes.
That's a good question. See, I'm a chess player, so invariably my mind starts going there. But I would say it's somewhere between a grandmaster and a monk. Like that's how I would say the data, like what they have in common is they can see things that you can't see. They have answers to a lot of questions that we all have. You need to be able to ask the question. You need to know at what stage of the game you are to be able to have that conversation with them. So you have someone who has the answers. The data sees everything. You can't hide your truth from the data. What needs to happen is to be able to ask the questions to the grandmaster who sees the game. And if you can do that, you will win the game.
That was great perspectives from each and every guest, right? And I think reflecting on it, Sujay, after season 1, I feel this section accomplished multiple aspects, in my opinion. One, of course, it helped our guests to also think a little bit about how they would want to personify, and gave a bit of a lighter theme as well in some complex discussions we've had with these guests. So that was kind of one objective. But I also realized from this discussion, would love your thoughts, how important it is also for this personification, perhaps for these guests and for our listeners to take back into their day in day out work as boards and CEOs, because it's very important that way to humanize and personify, so that other people who are maybe not as data savvy will at least be able to correlate it with these personifications.
Yeah, and another good point, Sid. And now, when I think of it, each of the personification answers we receive, maybe it plays a role for us in different points of time, right? So this a multiple faceted entity I will call data. Like sometimes it could be our dad guiding us, being the wise, almost everything, or sometimes it could be a Sherlock Holmes, as Rajiv talked about, bringing us those clues and both structured and unstructured data, or it could be what Rudiger talked about, both as the wizard and the beast. So this personification could happen with data in different points in your organization execution based upon the situation you're facing. So data is really that multifaceted entity that could continue to help it. So that personification is a good way to think about it. Okay, how should I leverage data now? Is it a Sherlock Holmes for me, or is it a grandmaster for me, or is it a honeybees for me at this point of time? Great. So, Sid, I think interesting conversation. Just to summarize, through this podcast, we want to highlight this core message that data must be treated as a strategic boardroom asset, not just an IT byproduct. And board, in their role in risk and governance and remunerations, should highlight and bring in, which some organizations doing at that board level. So, a data committee is what we will like to call at the board levels for organizations to set up and continue this transformation journey from a three-legged organization of people, process, and technology to a four-pillared organization of people, process, technology, and data, with data as the fourth pillar.
Absolutely. Sujay, since the time we started the season versus where we are today, that importance has even more increased, right? So I think if boards and CEOs are listening to this, they really need to take action right away for really to make that competitive differentiation.
Exactly. And Sid, just to add to that, not only from the podcast, since we have started writing the book, and now 3 years back, that's when we envisioned this importance, and it's becoming more and more reality, and it is a risk of existence. I must stress upon for organizations who are already not beginning this journey of their business transformation for a three-leg to a four-pillared operating model.
Absolutely, Sujay. So with that, I think great to reflect and summarize some of the key learnings. There is a lot more. So if our guests haven't listened to particular episodes, we'll use this time between season 1 and 2 maybe for you to also listen in and catch up to some of the episodes, because I think every guest had amazing perspectives and different unique perspectives to that. We should also conclude season 1 by thanking all of our guests and all of our listeners. Thank you so much for all the time and the efforts to either speak or to listen to our episodes. So Sujay and me will use now this time to start identifying the guests and speakers for the season 2. So there'll be a few weeks where we'll be going through identifying the guests. So if you are wanting, or someone who you feel will be very relevant to hear their perspectives, feel free to reach out to us. Details are in the show notes of the episode. So we'd love to hear back from you, or any feedback from season 1 as well, because we want to make, of course, season 2 even better than season 1. So would love to hear your feedback, as well as your thoughts on who could be potential guests for the season 2. Because that I
Yep.
would like to thank Sujay, thank everyone for the great perspectives and the great collaboration for this season.
Yep. Thanks a lot, everyone. Look forward to you in the season 2, and have a nice time till then. Bye.